President Donald Trump has announced that the U.S. will recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, a decision Muslim leaders have warned will inflame the region. Trump's move plunges the United States into a decades-long dispute over a city considered holy by Jews, Muslims, and Christians, and flies in the face of warnings from U.S. allies and enemies across the Middle East. But Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hailed the move as historic and said any peace deal with the Palestinians must concede that Jerusalem is Israel's capital. He also urged other countries to follow the US's move, which he called a courageous and just decision. Palestinian terrorist group Hamas warned the announcement opens the gates of hell on U.S. interests in the region. It also called on Arab and Islamic states to cut off economic and political ties with the U.S. embassy and expel American ambassadors to cripple the move. The PLO, Palestine Liberation Organization, said it destroys the two-state solution, while Iran said it would incite a new intifada. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas said the United States can no longer play the role of peace broker after Trump's decision. These deplorable and unacceptable measures deliberately undermine all peace efforts, Abbas said in a speech after Trump's announcement. He said Trump's move amounted to an announcement of U.S. withdrawal from playing the role it has been playing in the past decade in sponsoring the peace process. But the Czech Republic released a statement after Trump's speech saying they recognize part of Jerusalem, the west of the city, as the Israeli capital. The Central European state also said it sees Jerusalem as the capital of Palestine. In a statement, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs said it can start considering moving of the Czech embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem only based on results of negotiations with key partners in the region and in the world. Palestinian secular and Islamist factions called a general strike and midday rallies to protest the announcement. Answering the call to strike, the Palestinian Education Ministry declared a day off and urged teachers as well as high school and university students to take part in the planned rallies in the Israeli-occupied West Bank, the Gaza Strip and Palestinian areas in Jerusalem. The United Nations Security Council is likely to meet on Friday at the request of 8 states on the 15-member body over the decision. The request for UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres to publicly brief the Security Council meeting was made by France, Bolivia, Egypt, Italy, Senegal, Sweden, Britain, and Uruguay, said diplomats. French President Emmanuel Macron, though, agreed with the UN in saying the status of Jerusalem must be determined during negotiations between Palestinians and Israelis. He also called for calm from all sides and said violence must be avoided. President Macron branded the decision regrettable, calling for efforts to avoid violence at all costs. Addressing a press conference during a state visit to Algeria, Macron affirmed the attachment of France and Europe to the two-state solution, Israel and Palestine living side by side in peace and security within internationally recognized borders, with Jerusalem as the capital of the two states. France is ready with its partners to take all necessary initiatives in this direction. A Turkish government spokesman said the decision was irresponsible and illegal. Turkey said earlier the move will push the region and the world into a fire with no end in sight. The Turkish Foreign Ministry added in a statement that the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians can only be solved through the creation of a Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital. It warned that the decision by Trump will have negative reflections on the peace and stability in the region and risks completely destroying the ground for peace. We call on the US administration to reconsider this faulty decision, which may result in highly negative outcomes, it added. German Chancellor Angela Merkel does not support the decision by President Trump, her spokesman said. The German government does not support this position because the status of Jerusalem can only be negotiated within the framework of a two-state solution, spokesman Stefan Siebert wrote on Twitter. Criticism poured in from Tehran and Ankara to war-ravaged Syria and Pope Francis, reflecting the anxiety surrounding the announcement, which upends decades of US policy. In a frantic series of calls, the leaders of Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, the European Union, France, Germany, and Turkey are all warned Trump against the move. In the speech at the White House tonight, Trump said his administration would begin a process of moving the U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, which is expected to take years. The status of Jerusalem, home to sites holy to the Muslim, Jewish and Christian religions, has been one of the thorniest issues in long-running Mideast peace efforts. I have determined that it is time to officially recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, Trump said. While previous presidents have made this a major campaign promise, they failed to deliver. Today, I am delivering. I think it's long overdue. Many presidents have said they want to do something, and they didn't do it, Trump said at a cabinet meeting ahead of his announcement. He added, Israel is a sovereign nation with the right, like every other sovereign nation, to determine its own capital. Acknowledging this as a fact is a necessary condition for achieving peace, added the U.S. leader, declaring, it is time to officially recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Jordan condemned the recognition as amounting to a violation of international law and the UN Charter. declaring Jerusalem a capital is disregarding history and the truths in the region. It is a big injustice/cruelty, short-sightedness, foolishness/madness. It is plunging the region and the world into a fire with no end in sight, Turkish Deputy Prime Minister Bekir Bozdağ said on Twitter. I call on everyone to act logically, respect the agreements they signed and behave reasonably, avoid risking world peace for domestic politics or other reasons, he said. Prime Minister Netanyahu afterwards pledged no change to the status quo at Jerusalem's highly sensitive holy sites in the city sacred to Jews, Christians and Muslims. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres implicitly criticized President Trump's decision, warning that the city's status must be resolved through direct Israeli-Palestinian negotiations. From day one as Secretary-General of the United Nations, I have consistently spoken out against any unilateral measures that would jeopardize the prospect of peace for Israelis and Palestinians, Guterres said, immediately after the U.S. leader's announcement. Jerusalem is a final status issue that must be resolved through direct negotiations between the two parties on the basis of the relevant Security Council and General Assembly resolutions, taking into account the legitimate concerns of both the Palestinian and the Israeli sides, Guterres said. The Secretary-General of the Palestine Liberation Organization said U.S. President Trump's decision destroys any hopes for a two-state solution to the conflict. He destroyed the two-state solution, Seif Erekat, who long served as the Palestinians' top negotiator, told journalists after Trump's speech. Trump disqualified his country from any role whatsoever in the peace process, he said. As a chief Palestinian negotiator, how can I sit with these people if they dictate on me the future of Jerusalem as Israel's capital, he added. Erekat warned that it is really throwing the whole region into chaos, international chaos. British Prime Minister Theresa May disagrees with the decision to recognise Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, because it is unlikely to help efforts to bring peace to the region, her spokesman said. We disagree with the U.S. decision to move its embassy to Jerusalem and recognize Jerusalem as the Israeli capital before a final status agreement, the spokesman said. We believe that it is unhelpful in terms of prospects for peace in the region. Iran seriously condemns the decision to move its embassy to Jerusalem and its recognition of the city as Israel's capital. Read a statement on Wednesday from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs carried by state media. The move violates international resolutions, the statement said. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei said earlier that the United States was trying to destabilize the region and start a war to protect Israel's security. the Islamic Republic of Iran has reiterated that the most important reason for the falling apart of stability and security in the Middle East is the continued occupation and the biased and unequivocal support of the American government for the Zionist regime, the statement said. The State Department will immediately act on President Donald Trump's order to prepare to relocate the American embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson said Wednesday. The State Department will immediately begin the process to implement this decision by starting the preparations to move the U.S. embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, Tillerson said in a statement shortly after Trump's landmark announcement. Trump's decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel has sparked warnings that it could unleash more violence in the Middle East, and Tillerson said his department had taken measures to protect American nationals in the region. The safety of Americans is the State Department's highest priority, and in concert with other federal agencies, we've implemented robust security plans to protect the safety of Americans in affected regions, said Tillerson, who is on a visit to Germany. Although Trump's decision has been met with widespread criticism in the region, the top U.S. diplomat said that the U.S. president had only acted after widespread consultation with allies. We have consulted with many friends, partners, and allies in advance of the president making his decision, he said. We firmly believe there is an opportunity for a lasting peace, he added. The two-state solution has long been the basis of international peace efforts for the conflict. Israel claims all of Jerusalem as its undivided capital, while the Palestinians see the eastern sector of the city as the capital of their future state. I think tonight he is strengthening the forces of extremists in this region as no one has done before, Erekat said, referring to Trump. Hundreds of Palestinians, meanwhile, burned US and Israeli flags as well as pictures of Trump in the Gaza Strip, while relatively small clashes erupted near the West Bank city of Hebron and a refugee camp near Bethlehem. Demonstrators chanted "Death to America," "Death to Israel," and "Down with Trump" during the protests. Palestinian leaders have warned the move could have dangerous consequences, calling it a kiss of death to the two-state solution. He is declaring war in the Middle East. He is declaring war against 1.5 billion Muslims and hundreds of millions of Christians that are not going to accept the holy shrines to be totally under the hegemony of Israel. Manuel Hassan, the chief Palestinian representative to Britain, told BBC Radio. The announcement brought warnings from leaders in the Middle East and elsewhere that this move could cause violent protests and complicate peace efforts. Anticipating protests, U.S. government officials and their families were ordered to avoid Jerusalem's Old City and the West Bank. Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei said the plans were a sign of US incompetence and failure, while Iranian President Hassan Rouhani said there was no place for new adventurism by global oppressors, according to Mizan, the news site for the Iranian judiciary. Islamist terrorist groups such as Al-Qaeda, Hamas, and Hezbollah have in the past tried to exploit Muslim sensitivities over Jerusalem to stoke anti-Israel and anti-US sentiment. Our Palestinian people everywhere will not allow this conspiracy to pass, and their options are open in defending their land and their sacred places, said Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh. Germany and France warned its citizens in Israel and the Palestinian territories of the risk of unrest. French President Emmanuel Macron said he reminded Mr. Trump in a phone call on Monday that the status of Jerusalem should be determined through negotiations on a two-state solution for the Middle East. The French president expressed his concern over the possibility that the United States would unilaterally recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, the statement said, after Macron and Trump spoke over the phone. Mr. Emmanuel Macron reaffirmed that the question of Jerusalem's status had to be dealt with in the framework of peace negotiations between Israelis and Palestinians, with the aim in particular to re-establish two countries, Israel and Palestine, living in peace and security side by side with Jerusalem as capital. Apostrophe. In the UK, Prime Minister Theresa May said she would challenge her country's closest ally. I'm intending to speak to President Trump about this matter, May told MPs. Our position has not changed. It has been a long-standing one, and it is also a very clear one. It is that the status of Jerusalem should be determined in a negotiated settlement between the Israelis and the Palestinians, and Jerusalem should ultimately form a shared capital between the Israeli and Palestinian states. Apostrophe. British Foreign Minister Boris Johnson, speaking as he arrived for a NATO meeting in Brussels, expressed concern because we think that Jerusalem obviously should be part of the final settlement between the Israelis and the Palestinians, a negotiated settlement. China warned the plan could fuel tensions in the region, and Iranian President Hassan Rouhani said Muslims must stand united against this major plot. Apostrophe. Russia, now a key Middle East player, expressed concern about a possible deterioration. Apostrophe. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan called for a summit of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, OIC, the main pan-Islamic body, in Istanbul on December the 13th, to display joint action among Islamic countries over Jerusalem. In Brussels, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson tried to dampen down the reaction. The president is very committed to the Middle East peace process, Tillerson told reporters at a meeting of NATO foreign ministers in Brussels. Jordan and the Palestinians also called for an emergency meeting of the Arab League in Cairo, with diplomatic source saying it was likely to be convened on Saturday. But Trump assured Abbas that he remained committed to facilitating an Israeli-Palestinian peace deal. 1. Israeli security forces braced for possible unrest, but police said the situation in Jerusalem was calm for now. That could quickly change, given the religious passions that swirl around the Old City, where Al-Aqsa Mosque, Islam's third holiest shrine, abuts the Western Wall Prayer Plaza, a vestige of two ancient Jewish temples. Palestinians mounted two uprisings, or intifadas, against Israeli occupation from 1987 to 1993, then from 2000 to 2005, the latter ignited by a visit by then Prime Minister Ariel Sharon to the shrine area, known to Jews as Temple Mount. As a presidential candidate, repeatedly promised to move U.S. Embassy. However, U.S. leaders have routinely and unceremoniously delayed such a move since President Bill Clinton signed a law in 1995 stipulating that the United States must relocate its diplomatic presence to Jerusalem unless the commander-in-chief issues a waiver on national security grounds.